morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition. This is Taste Life Nutrition Radio, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where we have the most fun and talk to the coolest people who are doing the best things in the world, as far as I'm concerned. So today is going to be a super fun show where, sorry, I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do that I didn't do already. Where we are chatting about what I am completely in love with, and that is epigenetics. But when I talk about epigenetics, so often it's regarding how we have impact on our future health, on future generations. When today we're going to talk about how history impacts us today. It's this amazing, super cool conversation that's a little bit outside of my world, so I'm super excited about it. It's a lot about stress and trauma and how we deal with life and how we let life deal with us. And so, you know, the goal of the show is really to help bring goodness, but to help anyone who needs the help to think outside of the box, to have an understanding that when things go wrong, to maybe think outside of the conventional, and to help give guidance. There's so much good and so many things that are unique to help people live this big, huge, amazing life and not be strapped down by our past or by our traumas or by our histories or by our health today, and know that we have an amazing amount of power, which is super empowering when it comes to creating the life we want to live physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, all of the things that we talk about in this show. So today we have Johanna Lynn, who is living in beautiful Mexico. Super jealous about that. And she is going to really help us dig deep into epigenetics. Sorry, I don't have my microphone on me. Epigenetics and how to essentially how to deal with our history. And when I say history, it is not just yesterday. It's not just with our parents. It's with our grandparents and great-grandparents and those that are beyond our time, like historically. So thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you. It's been a little while.
It has, Nikki. I'm great to be here with you.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. But as always, we start the show with gratitude, because gratitude can change the world. And I truly believe that. Let me fix my, on my Instagram, you're not on it, and you need to be on it. Okay, there we go. All right, so we always start the show with gratitude because gratitude can change the world. What does that mean? Gratitude is it's something that you put out there that, oh my gosh, no, I'm not doing well here. All right, there we go. Now we got it all together. Gracious. It is an energy, it's a love, it's something that you can put out into the world that will impact those around you. And once it impacts those around you, it impacts those around them. And it can be, if we allow it to be, it can be a movement. It can be life-changing and life-giving. And so starting your day with gratitude, with prayer, I mean, that's what I try to do every morning. And then before you go to bed, what are you thankful for before you go to bed? There was I can't remember who it was, but I was listening to a podcast or something, and somebody, she said she tries really hard to wake up in the morning and be happy and grateful, but she just finds that she's not. And so whoever the podcast it was said, well, are you going to bed grateful? Because if you're not going to bed grateful, you're going to wake up in the same way you went to bed. I was like, oh, I like that. So thinking about that is what I do in my, when I'm in bed, I'm, saying my prayers and I'm thinking about all the things that I'm grateful for. And literally, as soon as I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off, the gratitude is in my head now. And it's really become a habit. It's really beautiful, and I think it's kind of amazing. So, Johanna, what are you grateful for?
Well, I have to say I do this similar practice as you. It's become kind of routine, and I love it. I really appreciate it. So you had mentioned we moved to Mexico, and when we arrived, we started volunteering at a dog shelter. And so just a couple days ago, we adopted the sweetest, most cuddly, amazing dog, and so we're so grateful. She's brought already so much joy, and we're going on more walks and getting into nature more often, so it's awesome.
Good. What kind of dog?
Well, it's a shelter dog, so it's a real mix. She has German Shepherd coloring, and she's pretty small. She's about half the size of a Shepherd,
Okay.
So she's a real sweetie.
I guess she's not close by. Bring her in so we could see her.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well maybe next time we'll have her on the show with you.
That's right. There we go.
You know, when I first started the show, what I did is I had, and this was, pre-COVID, so, there were shelter dogs all over the place, and then, in the middle of COVID, there are no shelter dogs anymore. It's interesting. But we would bring in little shelter dogs to try to get the word out and, talk about dog health and how important it is in, when they're feeding and all of these things. It's a whole show in and of itself that I've done and then probably need to do again. But dogs are my heart. Love dogs. They're amazing. So good for you. It's super, super exciting. Yeah. I will tell you, because I would tell everybody else and you, that part of my passion and my love is helping people to feed their dogs raw food and know how to feed them good, raw, healthy food instead of kibble, which is super damaging. So if you have questions, if you don't already, happy to help there.
Wonderful. I know where to reach out.
Yeah.
Good info.
Yeah. All right, so what am I grateful for? This time of year is one of my favorite times of year. Even though I'm a summer girl, I do love Christmas. I love everything that Christmas is about when it comes to, the birth of Christ and what it means and what it's meant to the world and what it's meant to me. I find that I am very slowly but steadily working on and creating and building my relationship with Christ. And, that's so much of what I have to be grateful for is really being excited about building that relationship where I've always been a believer, but not necessarily an active participant, and working more and more toward being that active participant and listening and trying to pay attention to what it is and where I'm supposed to go, which is also why I believe so often, people are coming into my life now that make such a big difference and who have a lot of the same passions as I do. You're one of those people when it comes to, epigenetics and the science of it, and then, how it affects our life, our health, our fertility, right? And so, we have been working on putting together a little program when it comes to fertility and pregnancy and helping people through that. We come at this from similar but different enough angles, and so it's been really fun to collaborate on getting something like this out. So hopefully that's coming next year in just a few weeks. Which is crazy. So anyway, I'm super grateful for that. Grateful for just what you bring, because it is your perspective on epigenetics. And I think it was last night I was talking to my husband about it. Your perspective is that historical perspective, where mine is more of that future perspective, and I hadn't really given it that thought. And he was like, "That's really cool." I was like, "What is really cool?" Because yes, we talk about how we have impact on 7 generations ahead, but us today have been impacted by 7 generations behind. And what does that do? What does that do to us, good, bad, and indifferent? And how does it play out in our world, in our stress, how we deal with people and with family and with children and all of these things? So I'm going to start letting you talk, because I could just keep talking, but want to dig in a little bit to all of the who's and the whys. What excites you? What got you here? What in the world got you looking into family history and how it affects people and fertility? So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things that crossed my path. So I'm going to put it in quotes, by accident, you know.
Yep.
I was working with some some integrative physicians who really were into some intense cases, some patients with some really severe health concerns, some mental health concerns as well. And I just didn't feel like I had the tools I needed. And I came across one of my most influential teachers at the perfect time and started to learn about this, what I felt was a missing piece of family history and how we can weave that into really making the change that people need. And I guess for me, what the wow factor was, I started to look at the people I was supporting beyond just them as the individual, but inside the context of their whole family system. And so I started to look at life now from this more systemic perspective, that none of us get to be the way we are by accident. And so it just started to make so much sense. And whether I'm supporting someone with a health crisis, or they're on their edge of divorcing, or their child won't speak to them anymore, there is a way to find a resolution by looking at it through this sort of full systems perspective.
That's so interesting. Remind me, because I didn't write it down, because I love the name of your company, and I feel so silly. It's the, what is it?
It's the Family Imprint Institute.
Family Imprint Institute. I just love that so much. So,
thank you.
What is it? Let's do this first. For those who maybe are joining the show for the first time and don't understand what epigenetics is, let's talk about that.
Yeah. And so if we pretended we were all computers for a moment, it's like we're not born with a clean hard drive. We share an operating system with our parents, with our grandparents, and so we know through science we can go 2 generations back and we can find almost the trace or the connection. So let's say if, gosh, grandpa was a prisoner of war, or grandma lived through poverty, we're going to have more of a, I guess, hypervigilance towards anxiety, towards feeling like I'm never going to have enough. And so I think a lot of people come into this work thinking, I've always had problems with money, or this is just the way my relationships go, you know, I always kind of lose out. Well, this has a history, this has a connection. And my approach is all about finding what that is, so that we can kind of detach from that identity. We don't have to keep continuing those same painful patterns.
I love that. I want to give the explanation that I usually give, and mine's more that sort of biochemical explanation, but it's still the same. Anyway, so if you look at our genome, we have our genome, and then on top of our genes is our epigenome. And so those are the variants or the switches that can be turned on and off, which allows for the expression or the non-expression of genes. And so the most amazing thing about epigenetics, when it comes at least to our future, not to our past, right? So that's already imprinted on us, but it's the most impactful to switch these genes on and off due to lifestyle factors. That's really all it is, which is, it creates a lot of accountability, but it's the food that we eat, it's what we drink, it's our stress levels, it's how we adapt, it's trauma. Can't always, control trauma, totally understandable, but it does play a role in our epigenome, or how our genes express. And that can be expression in disease, and the biggest, probably in the easiest way to look at this is, just because you have cardiovascular disease in your family doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have cardiovascular disease, because we have the control over what we put in our bodies, how we allow stress to affect us, whether we do or we don't pray and meditate, which is how we allow stress to affect us. The toxins that we put on our skin or in our body. Think of the things we put in our hair, our makeup, our deodorant, our lotions, and our perfumes. Don't get me started on perfume.
No.
So bad. It's so bad. But it's a true biochemical reaction in the body, but it seems so, I don't know if the term's esoteric, you know, it just kind of seems like, whoa, wow, how does that happen? And how do my great-grandparents have an impact on me today? But, and this is very, I don't have a lot, my own data on this, but like the Jewish people who didn't die but experienced, you know, the severe trauma of living through, what is my word, what
the concentration camps?
Yes.
Back
There was there's a word I was looking for and it's just not coming to me. Auschwitz?
Holocaust.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Man, you know that happens to me way too often. You work on my brain. But they have tracked that trauma gene,
yes,
right? And I mean, that was the first time I heard about any of this. I was like, that's amazing. We have trauma genes that are passed down and affect us today.
Well, exactly. So the researcher's name is Rachel Yehuda. She's like my superhero.
Oh.
She's so amazing
Fun.
with what she has brought forward to understand. So she started to study the Holocaust descendant survivors and their children. And this understanding of, oh my gosh, the children have the same stress markers on the brain as if they themselves had experienced the Holocaust. And, you know, being stuck and are we dying today or tomorrow or are we ever going to get free? I don't even think most of us can imagine living in that kind of stress and how it completely changes their DNA.
Yeah.
And so the experiences that our parents and grandparents go through, the factor that I love that you brought up is the genes that get switched on or off. And so what allows that to carry on is actually how we make sense of the trauma, or how, let's say, I don't know, we had a very painful divorce and we never really resolved it. Now do we go on in years feeling bitter and angry and not trusting anybody again? Or do we do the work to recognize, you know, what did I bring into that relationship? What was my part? Do we actually heal it? When we do, we're much less likely to pass on the residue of that to our children and grandchildren. And so if we give our parents a break for just a sec, personal growth, you know, Psychology Today wasn't a magazine that was on every, you know, doctor's waiting list or waiting table. It just wasn't accessible. And so I think in our generation, we have a lot more, let's sort of say, leftover emotions that haven't been dealt with. And so it's up to us to make that change, and so that what we give to our children is much less.
So you're saying we have to work hard to create this big, badass life that we want. And it can be hard, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if it has to be hard.
Okay.
I think that a lot of this work is soft. A lot of this work is actually stepping towards compassion. I actually used to teach a class called The Myth of Forgiveness, because it's not about forgiveness. There are things that happen in families that, to be honest with you, Nikki, are unforgivable. And I think that gets people stuck around, if I forgive my mom or my grandma, that means it's okay, whatever it was that happened. And so what I like to talk to with my clients is building compassion and understanding. So if mom was super critical and nothing you could ever do was good enough, what happened to mom that had her be so tight, so abrasive, so intense with you? And so we start to build out that 3-generation genealogy to understand how mom was impacted, grandma's influence, what happened to grandpa, so that we're really recognizing this is what shaped mom or dad as parents, so that we, the sort of grown adult that wants to do this work, can step out of taking it personal, can step out of repeating it with our own kids.
So how do we do that when you don't have your parents or your mom and your grandmother in the room with you? How do you do that work?
Yeah, I really never bring the whole family in. It's always individual, because so much about that relationship and healing it is how we hold the parent inside. It's really not about having the big conversation and putting everything out there. And so a lot of my work is really bridged on how clients describe what's going on. So how they describe their challenges, what they blame their parents for, where they're stuck, where they're unhappy in their marriage. And really our language reveals everything. So how my client answers the questions that I ask really leads me to the root cause of what's going on. And so the brilliance of the founder of the work that I do, his name is Bert Hellinger. He was a really world-renowned psychotherapist. He's passed away now, but born in Germany and wrote several books about how we hold the family inside of us, how it plays out. And so a lot of what he taught was how we have the inner image of that parent. Can we close our eyes? Can we imagine that they're here with us, even if they're no longer living? Can we say what we need to say to get it up and out of our body so that it's not increasing our inflammation, so that it's not the reference point of the stress response we keep going back to, so that we're clearing it, we're resolving it, and we're moving forward from a very fresh place.
Have you, do you know the book When the Body Says No?
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I've just started it, and I want to talk just real quick about this because I think it is a really great example. I listened to it on the way in, and the whole time I'm listening to it going, I'm going to talk about this on the show. Because although it's really hard what I'm going to talk about and sad and scary, I think it goes back to the empowerment of understanding that when you understand what you're doing and how you're reacting, that we have the ability to change the outcomes. And so I'm going to talk about, so I'm probably only a quarter away through the book. And so right now we're talking about ALS and, people who have been diagnosed with ALS. And so it fits in here so beautifully because some of the examples that he's giving as he's, reading the book is a woman who was adopted, and so she tried her entire life to want to be a part of her mom's life, her adopted mom's life. Never worked. So she became the caretaker. And so this comes from, did it come from grandma? It's obviously some stuff came from mom, but she always felt like she needed to be the caretaker. And also what was so interesting to me is the over-the-top niceness. It's real nice. People are just really, really like overly nice and overly giving and overly caring, which it has led them into a biochemical disease process where the motor neurons are dying and leading on to ALS. And so one of the things that they said that they are, this is not scientific fact, but when they're looking at people who are coming through their clinic with ALS, they literally will say that person's not nice enough to have ALS. And I thought, wow, that is so interesting. And it's not, it just is that over the top caregiving sort of attitude that comes from the stress and the trauma of whatever happened in the past that is now leading them to this place. And so the great thing about what you do and why we need to get this stuff out in the world and why people need to read When the Body Says No and why we need to understand, I mean, I'm here too. I'm like, what do I need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
But if we work on the things today, when we see that we're having blocks or we see that we don't understand things or we see that we're having symptoms, what is the root cause of that? What's it coming from? Is it mental and emotional? Is it stress triggered? And finding somebody like Johanna who has the ability to help you through that, so we're not dealing with those crazy, scary conditions that we deal with today, the ALS, the Parkinson's, the cancers, all of these things that so often can be rooted in, yes, toxicity, yes, unhealthy food, but also the trauma, the stress, all of these things that our brains are dealing with that affect us biochemically.
That's right. I think the biggest takeaway from the Body Says No book is if we aren't able to say no, if we don't have that healthy boundary, our body says no for us. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget, it was early in my practice, I was working with a woman with really severe fibromyalgia. Like couldn't get up, couldn't move, in so much pain. And she came to my office after seeing every doctor, every specialist, every person she could imagine. And so I start every practice or every session, with the 3-generation genealogram. And she shared with me, finally, Now my husband stops asking me to cater all of his business parties. I just don't have to do that anymore. And I said, oh, notice what you just said. You weren't comfortable saying no. You felt you had to do it. You know, he was the main income earner, so she felt, well, how can I say no? I have to do this part. But she hated every moment of it. It was really depleting for her. So the only way she could, without guilt, say no is if my body doesn't actually let me do it. So let's not let our bodies have to talk for us. Let's match how we feel inside, meaning, I don't want to do that, with the ability to express that compassionately. I'm sure her husband, if we could, wave the magic wand and go back, he would much prefer to say, honey, let's hire a caterer. I'm so exhausted, I can't pull this off anymore, versus silently suffering, silently doing what's expected of us, and then our body has to carry the weight.
And it's one of the things that I try to get across to, whether it's to, an audience when I'm speaking or to clients, is one of the things that we have sort of lost in our society is the ability to listen to our bodies. We take that pain that we're having and we're like, okay, well, I'll take an Advil, or whatever stress, I'll take a Xanax. It's that we're in a society where we don't listen to what the body's telling us. And by the time we're actually having symptoms, which pain is a symptom, depression, anxiety, GI dysfunction, cardiovascular disease, these are all symptoms or a bunch of symptoms altogether creating disease. But these are symptoms that we need to take a step back and listen to what the body's trying to tell us. Because by that time, the body's like, now I need you. I need you to pay attention and I need your help. And it's not that I need to have the antidepressant or the statin or whatever it is. It's we need to jump in and start to take control of these things, because this is root cause, right? We're getting to the root cause, whether it is the mental and emotional, going to the biochemical, or vice versa, getting to that root cause so we can address it and we can allow the body to repair from the bottom up, and then it can do its job.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so much of that is that relational piece. Do I dare disappoint this person? And I often say to my clients, it's so much better to disappoint that person you love or that dear friend than it is to continue to disappoint yourself. And so how do we start to turn that around where, even if we gave it a number, like I have $100 of energy to spend in a day, where am I putting that? And so many of us go over into that, overdraft, because we're just giving and we want to be that nice person, and those are all good things. We don't want to diminish that, but at what cost?
Yeah.
How much can you handle, and how sustainable is it?
And so when you're working with your clients, they're clients, right? Not patients, clients.
Right.
Everybody is obviously very individual, but what are some tools that you use that can be helpful for people?
Yeah, it is very individual, so it really depends on what they're coming for. I would say that's kind of what I love most about my practice, that it's a really wide range of why anybody would come in to see me. And so a big part of it is getting into the body. I think so many of us live on what others expect of me. I'm just on repeat. This is just what I need to do. And we actually don't even know what a no feels like in our body, or what that, situation, yes, I want to get into that. And so sometimes it's just getting quiet enough to clear away some of the mental chaos and the stress, to be able to understand how the body is trying to speak to us. You were so right when you mentioned a little while ago, the body starts to talk to us and we essentially just stuff it back down because we take that pill. We're not in communication with the body. And I think that's a really big part. I think the main part of what I do as a tool is to connect the dots for my clients.
Yeah.
That, just like that case I shared, oh, now finally my husband doesn't ask me to do this. Okay. And what do you need to start communicating so that your body doesn't have to take up that job? And so a lot of the times it's what is happening behind the scenes that I haven't considered is actually a really great cost to me.
So fun. I love it. I'm gonna take a real quick break. I think this is a good time to take a break and talk about our sponsor just briefly. Cellcore Biosciences, who is, I just love innovation and good innovation that has, that is all about health and the body and bringing goodness to the world. Obviously, that's why I do the show, is to bring goodness to the world as much as I can, or the people who are doing amazing things. And Cellcore is one of those companies because they are innovative, they are unique in the delivery system that allows for the nutrients to get at or in the cells at the cellular level into the mitochondria, and allowing for repair at that level, which very often that doesn't happen. If you have regular supplements, very often they're going through the GI, and so much of it doesn't actually get to where it's supposed to go. Not that they're not great. There are some really great ones. There's some really terrible ones. So you've got to be careful with your quality of supplements. But the delivery system of their products is unique, and it's amazing, and it works really, really well. It's very potent, which is why you can only get it through practitioners. But you can go and you can find a practitioner on their website. Of course, I use their products on a regular basis. I think that they are fascinating, for one, just to watch how well they work and how they can really change lives. And it's interesting too, because they have these, I keep talking about the biochemistry, and so a lot of it is about biochemistry, but they have this one product in particular that is called ME support. So you call it ME, but it's mental emotional support. So it is a very interesting sort of energetic, which is weird to say, kind of product that has changed lives when it comes to people who are dealing with chronic diseases, and there is that something that's missing. It can sort of help to flip that switch. It's really, really interesting stuff. It's a hard one for me to grasp, but I dig it a lot. But I also say that, when there is that piece that needs to be addressed, you've got to see someone too, right? So we can't just depend on supplements to help with everything. It's got to be good food. It's got to be building your team who is there to help you get through the hard stuff, help you get through that disease, help you get through that depression, help you get through that familial trauma that so often can play a role in our lives. So look them up. They've got a lot of good science, good data. I say science now, and I want to change that because I think there's a lot of really bad science out there that's not science. So it's really frustrating. And I think I'm going to start, instead of just saying science-based, it's really evidence-based. And really, it's about looking at real good clinical results and data that is evidence-based, and not just somebody saying, well, it's science. Just doesn't work that way very often. Anyway.
It's become overused, right? It's like the natural was on every label.
Yeah.
It loses its meaning.
It does. And I think over the last couple of years it really has, which is sad, because you and I are very similar, and obviously that we love the science. I was reading your bio on your website. It was so fun because it said, you'll find me, I'm paraphrasing, but you'll find me reading a book, and it's not some simple, fictional book. It is something it's going to be probably about neurotransmitters, and I'm going to eat it all up. And I'm like, I'm the same way. I was just talking about this last night. It's like, I don't need fiction. I need education. I need to read something that's going to fire my synapses and get me excited and, want to reread it again so I can keep learning it. And so I love that.
Highlighter out.
Yes,
there we go.
Yes. Yeah, little ear tags or dog tags or whatever you call them. And I have one book that I love that is, it's got the little red stickies, and it's just red stickies everywhere.
Yes. Our bookshelves probably look similar.
Yes, I know. My husband's like, so why don't you just do audiobooks? I'm like, because I can't highlight, and I can't see it, and I can't just refer to them and go to them. It's so different. He doesn't get it at all. I know it's a problem with paper, but it's just sometimes you just got to have a book. All the time you just got to.
Yeah. Well, we all learn a little differently. You
Yeah.
know, some of us are audio, but I love that old fashioned. Open the book and making notes, and it's great.
So good. So let's see, where do we want to go here? One of the things that I'm thinking is one of the things that you talked about, and so this kind of brings it down to a little sciencey, a little nitty gritty, but you talked about, and I know we alluded this, but you didn't use the term, and so I love this, the neuroplasticity of the brain and how we're able to develop that to kind of get past the roadblocks, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so do you want to expand on that a little bit? Is that
sure.
Okay? Yeah.
If anybody wants to look into it further, it's something called Hebb's Law. So this idea that neurons that fire together, wire together. So what we know through neuroscience, it's almost like we want to celebrate this whole neuroplasticity, because it wasn't that long ago the medical community just sort of believed or thought, well, if you've had this, I guess that's the way you are, that's the way you'll always be. It just was kind of this set point. And we're so much more miraculous and resilient than that. And so this whole idea that we can actually practice our way into healing, we're building new neural pathways. So if we give the sports analogy, you'll have all high-profile sports players actually visualize in their mind the game or the race or the outcome that they'd like to see. And there's even been studies done by athletes who practice and put in the hours and put in the time compared to those athletes who, let's say, rested and visualized, and they have the same outcome when they get back into the game. And so neurons that fire together, wire together. Can I sit back and imagine that conversation with my mom, even if I've been estranged from her for years, even if she passed away a decade ago? Can I imagine letting love flow? Can I say the things I need to say? Or me as the facilitator say, imagine your mom saying whatever the healing sentence is, and what happens in your body as you receive it. We are literally changing the way the brain is mapped and how we can then receive life, how we interact in future relationships, how we parent. And so the use of neuroplasticity to begin to shape in our benefit, of our choosing, the way we want things to go, so that we're not always back to the reference point of pain or the old trauma. Because if we do that, in a way, we recreate more of the same. I tease my clients sometimes by saying we get what we expect, but only every time. So what are we expecting? Are we expecting life to go well? Are we expecting our relationships are always going to be this way? Well, we have to take a look at our own thinking and what we're feeding our brain through thoughts.
I love this so much because we're in this place where, I'm hoping I can put this together properly. There's a lot of talk about manifesting, and I appreciate that, and I talk about it too a little bit. I think it has the potential of being a little bit of a slippery slope, but what you're doing is you're putting the evidence-based data behind what it means to manifest. So, right, it's the visualizing, it's the being the co-creator in your future. I believe that, God is our creator, but we're co-creating. We have the ability to make decisions. We know where we want to go or where we should go. And, that's why, we have, see, there's a word I'm looking for and I can't find it again. But it is upon us to make our decisions and to create that future that we want. And if we do sit and we believe that things can't change, won't change, or the negative self-talk, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve, these things, then you are co-creating, but you're co-creating in sort of that negative way that maybe you don't want, as opposed to visualizing where you want to be, what you want, how you want it to be, where you want it to be, what relationships you want to have, and putting it out there and moving toward it, because I think that we can co-create and basically do and be and get whatever we want as long as it's on the up and up, right?
Yeah, it's all for the good.
Yeah,
but I think what, in the conversation of manifesting and everything that you're talking about, the missing link, only from my perspective, is, so let's say we would want to manifest more money, and we're wanting to bring in abundance and prosperity. But if we've closed our hearts to our parents, which are really where we get this gift of life, where life responds to us differently when we've resolved the stuff with our parents. It's like, I can receive life fully when I understand what they could give and maybe what they'll never be able to give. And a lot of the times, our inner relationship with money, this idea of enoughness, comes from the feeling of I got enough from our primary caregivers in the way of love, attunement, attention. And so it often plays out again in our relationship with money. And so we can't just manifest more money until we've dealt with the sort of the roots and the foundation of where we all started from.
Yeah. It's so good, and I appreciate that, because I think that we all have our places that need to be worked on, especially with money. Money is such a big one.
It is. It's got such a charged, so it's got a lot behind it.
Yeah, it really does. I think that I want to move into talk a little bit about the fertility stuff and how history. One of the things that I found so interesting when, I think it was probably our first conversation, was you had said that a lot of women come to you unable to get pregnant, but there's a fear there that they are going to repeat the same patterns that their mom repeated, which were not good patterns, and so they're not getting pregnant, but it's like, I'm fearful of being a mom in that sense, right? You put it much more eloquently than I just did, but...
Oh no, that sums it up exactly. And so it's almost acknowledging or recognizing that our subconscious mind is in the driver's seat. It's really responsible for 95% of our reactions, even our thoughts. And so unconsciously, we might be protecting ourselves from becoming a mom, because when we think of our own mom, we were thinking of resistance or defense or hurt or all those unresolved emotions. And so this fear, in a way, of becoming like her can actually get in the way of our fertility process. We might be doing all the right things, meditating and eating well and all the steps, but what's not clicking? And so we have to look at that underlying, what does it mean to me in the privacy of my own thoughts to become a mom?
I love, it's like everything you say, I'm like, I love that. But it's true. We're in a place where fertility rates are through the floor. I mean, for men and for women. And why is that? There are a lot of reasons for it. A lot of reasons when it comes to the toxicities in our environment, and going back to the chemicals in our food and what we put on our skin and in our hair. All of these are intense endocrine disruptors. If you've heard the term, whether from me or somebody else, xenoestrogens or metalloestrogens, so heavy metals that have the same impact. And so, in my world, looking at this, it's the, we're looking at estrogen receptor sites that are all over the body, and these xenoestrogens, metalloestrogens, they bind to these estrogen receptor sites really tightly. So our natural estrogen doesn't have the ability to do its job. So you've got all of this estrogen just kind of running around in the body, and it creates a really dysregulated hormonal situation, right? And so we have women dealing with severe PMS, PMDD. One of the things that before starting this practice that I didn't even know was a thing was monthly women having such severe pain that they are going to the emergency department because they are dealing with such severe pain. This is massive hormonal dysregulation. And it's not normal. And for anybody who's out there dealing with and suffering from these crazy symptoms, find some help. I think my symptoms are so much less than they used to be. But I think as I've aged, I've also become more healthy, and I understand my body and things like that. And that's what needs to happen is, again, digging for the root cause and coming at it, doing all of the things that you possibly can, even, in doing the best you can. Nobody expects perfection, but eating food that's not full of chemicals, preservatives, pesticides, herbicides, they're terribly toxic and they're a burden on the body. The other things, though, that are a burden on the body that can create hormonal dysregulation is going to be stress, and it's going to be the negative self-talk, and it's going to be the frustration that you may be experiencing over whatever it is. So there's so much involved, and finding your team to allow you to balance and to understand your body and to get you through those things that maybe you don't realize is what is actually impacting you. How many of us really sit back and think, I'm not getting pregnant because of a situation with my mom?
Well,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much of even what you've described too, Nikki, is like invisible. It's going on behind the scenes. And so that team to sort of help you identify what's what, it's already such a stressful time. You don't have to suffer needlessly. And I think you and I spoke at another time about on the fertility journey, often so many couples go through a lot of strain, a lot of stress. And so can we widen that landing strip for baby so that things feel welcomed and calm? Can we find out kind of what's underneath the relationship that the fertility stress has kind of pulled things right to the edge? And so it can be an opportunity to do a lot of the, let's call it prep work, before becoming a parent, whether that's through nutrition and getting good solid nutrition for the family, or really strengthening the relationship that the baby's going to be coming into. So it's a lot. It can be a lot. So you're going to want that team to support you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, we talk a lot about women when it comes to pregnancy and having babies and that kind of thing. And so you and I have had this discussion where, it's just as important to include the men because they are also very much like half of the process, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm curious though, which I think I know the answer, but we've not talked about it. I'm curious about trauma and the impact on men and sperm count and motility, or if there's even data behind trauma and those things. Do you know?
That's a good question. So for me, I guess I simplify it more around how life force is coming through. And so I don't have any data to pull from specifically on that, but this concept around, it's another valid question. Am I ready to be a dad? What's going to be expected of me? How might this change my life? And see, these are all subconscious things running in the background. And is that slowing down motility? Is that getting in the way of what's possible here? And so a lot of the times, because you're right, the father is half of the equation, we're going to want to look at his family history, the readiness of becoming a father, stepping into that role, and the impact on the relationship. These are all key pieces that need to be looked at before we jump in.
And so I believe that I saw on your website, you do work with couples, right?
Yeah, I love to work with couples. It's really this idea that systems marry systems. And so we marry or get into relationship with what's familiar, not necessarily what's healthy, not even necessarily what we write as a list for our ideal partner. And so much can be flushed out and understood when we can look at our partner's system. We can understand certain things that frustrate us about them so that we can stop having those circular arguments. I have to say, more often than not, I certainly invite the whole couple to come, but usually only half the couple might show up. Sometimes only one side is ready to really dive in and do the work. And we can still get a lot accomplished that way. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, I think that that happens a lot, and it can be hard, but I think also sometimes one is motivated, and it just takes a little more time and a little more encouragement for them both to be motivated, hopefully.
That's it.
Because it is a partnership. It's a partnership with the marriage, but it's a partnership with, being ready. And this is where, we both love is the getting ready for pregnancy. which so many people are, you know, once they make the decision, is like, okay, we got to do it right now. I'm like, no, let's just take a step back and let's make sure the body is healthy. And so in that, you know, taking the time to create a healthy body, create a healthy mindset, but also making sure that you are partnering together and doing this together. You know, when we have talked about, you know, our separate programs and then our partnership in a upcoming program, it really is making sure that, yes, we're speaking to women a lot because we know that and we are women. It's just kind of how it goes. But the understanding that the men are partners and we want them involved and we need them involved. We all need our partners involved in these big life decisions and goals. And so, you know, none of this is dismissing of any of the men in the relationships. It's just as important to have a healthy body for a man, getting rid of, the xenoestrogens and the metalloestrogens can affect men just as much as it affects women and children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so eating the good, clean, healthy food, making sure that the body is strong and you're producing enough testosterone. There was somebody, who was it? It's a little bit political, and I probably shouldn't say it because my intent is not to get political, but what he said was, again paraphrasing, was that testosterone is a poison and should be eliminated. Something like that.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's some political dude, which is...
Instead of it being just a biological factor in the body that has been there since the beginning of time.
It's how we were created. But that's what I find a lot of people want to do, is want to take away how we were created, which is really sad. And so men need to be men, women need to be women, because we are...
That's right. Well, that's why it takes the egg and the sperm to create a baby, and both are equally required, yes.
Absolutely. So anyway, that just came to me. I was like, people say the dumbest things. And I've been guilty too. I've said some really dumb things, but I would never say that we shouldn't have testosterone. Women need testosterone. Men really need testosterone. And these xenoestrogens tend to upset that balance and can decrease testosterone, and it can be a big problem. So, making sure that the hormones are in balance. And the same, that you're using healthy deodorants, just don't use an antiperspirant. And the things we cook in. I have a client, we got back her heavy metal report, and she was high in all kinds of stuff. It was like aluminum and there's something nickel, aluminum and nickel, super toxic stuff. And we're like, where's this coming from? Is it coming from what she's cooking her food in? There's so many things that we want to kind of sit back and take into consideration that can affect us physically, mentally, emotionally. All of these things can have an impact on our brain.
And doesn't it seed the process for disease later on? We have to sort of, what can I prevent, and what decisions am I making today that supports my aging and my fertility and my all of it? Yeah.
Interesting that you're saying this. I keep getting kind of off topic a little bit, but it's fun. There's a girl, I'm in this course, and there's this woman who is, I bet she's 65, but her specialty is anti-aging, and so she may be 65, but she said that her age, her biochemical age, is 34.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, that's amazing. It's like, I want to do that. I need to know more.
Yeah, no kidding.
I saw that this morning. I know. I just saw that this morning. I'm like, okay, when I finish, I'm going to go read more. Anyway, it's amazing what we can do in all of the ways to allow the body to work properly, to procreate properly, to create our healthy futures properly, all of the things to create the amazing neuroplasticity that I just think is super fascinating, but so real, and we're so capable of such amazing things.
Well, and I think we're living in a time where it's also accessible, you know?
Yeah.
That we've got these different books, these different experts, this research, it's all just sort of coming out. And so we're really living at a time where there's maybe more options than there has ever been before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's good for your listeners perhaps not to feel overwhelmed, but just to really key into what do you choose, what do you need at your sort of part of your journey, and to know that the options are out there instead of feeling like, oh, this is my stuck point, this is my diagnosis. And, you know, diagnosis shuts down the inquiry of what could be next, what can we look at.
Yes.
And so let's stay curious and open, because we're at a really exciting time.
We are. And that leads me to always ask why. Always ask why. Never be okay with that's just the way that it is because it's not true. Always ask why, dig deeper. That's why we do the work that we do, is because we want to understand the why behind whether it's a diagnosis or the symptom or whatever might be expressing, which is, you know, why we have clients. But what you said sort of leads me into talking just a little bit about soulful conception, because Soulful Conception is a preconception planning and care program that we're looking at launching mid-February. It is for for women and their spouses, their partners. So it is for couples. But my goal with this program is just what you said, is to bring in people who are amazing at what they do. You're one of those people. So I'm excited about it for that reason, because I know I have a lot to give and a lot to share, and there are some things that I know, but there's a lot that I'm not an expert at. There's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot that I want to come from the experts to share with the people who are a part of this program. And I want people, it's kind of just along the same lines with this show. It's bringing to highlight the amazingness that's out there that we don't always know is out there.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So keep a lookout for Soulful Conception, and you know, we're starting to push it pretty hard over the next probably week or so. So if you have questions, always reach out. You can go to the website tastelifenutrition.com. But before I get into that stuff, I really want people to know where to find you, how to reach out if they just have questions or if they want to work with you, and all of the things that you offer.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. Your listeners can visit my website, www.johannalynn.ca. I'm on Instagram under the Family Imprint Institute, so you can look me up on any of the channels, and I'll be under Johanna Lynn or Family Imprint Institute. And a big love for me is education, so I'm often sharing the latest research on epigenetics, some great stuff about neuroscience, and really just giving those options so people still feel that hope and still feel there are options where they might be stuck.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to this. This is such a fascinating topic, epigenetics. It's just the coolest freaking thing.
Thanks for inviting me here to talk about it. I love it just as much as you do.
It is so interesting. And, you know, I go back to, you know, and I have to say it because I feel like some things just are worth being repeated, is how empowering epigenetics is, even if we're just starting to understand it. But it gives us so much power over ourselves. It's not, like you said, it's not due to necessarily family history. We can have a history, but we have so much control over ourselves and what we do to impact our health and our lives and our mind and our brain, that it's really beautiful. It really is beautiful. And it's hard too, because I think I said this, but it puts a lot of accountability in our hands. And not everybody likes that, and it can be hard. You know, there can sometimes be some work, but I love what you said about coming at it gently or soft, right? Sometimes that's really what we need to, especially when we're dealing with a history of trauma and things like that. I think it's smart. So I love what you do. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And of course, like I said, you can go to tastelifenutrition.com and you can fill out an assessment on the website that'll come directly to me, and I'll reach out to you personally, and we'll chat a little bit, and we'll talk about what your needs are and what you want to see in your life and how I might be able to help. We can also talk about soulful conception if you're looking to get pregnant, or start your family or grow your family. So excited about that stuff. You can find Taste Life Nutrition on all the social media, and you'll start seeing more and more and more as we just continue to grow and have fun and build this show. So the show turns into the Taste Life Nutrition podcast. So you can find us, of course, every week streaming live here at kuhsdenver.com. Coolest radio station in the world. But you can also then find us on